What's up, everybody? So, I know a guy that sounds just like me, thinks like me, kind of looks like me, but totally is not me because me tends to get shadowed. So, my friend just started a channel that's very far away from me, and we're going to see what happens. So, if you guys would like to go check out his channel, I'll put a link in the description and comments. And a couple of favors here if you don't mind. One is wait till the day of the month that you were born, or a day or two either side, but if you're born on the 16th, then wait till somewhere around the 16th. So hopefully it looks a little more organic, like word of mouth spreading, instead of just everybody dumping over from another channel. And don't worry, I'll remind everybody for the next month. Right now it's just a couple of videos that I've already shown on this channel. The other favors would be do this right when you're going to bed and fall asleep to the video so it plays all the way through, because that does huge for the algo. Or just watch the whole video if you haven't seen it. And of course, comment, like, and subscribe. My friend, who happens to go by Static, will be eternally grateful. Thank you. So, all of the ancient cultures have their mythologies that describe the world being obliterated in different ways. The Aztecs say we're in the age of the fifth sun, meaning the earth has been wiped out 4 other times. They say the last one was by a great flood, which is pretty much ubiquitous around the world. Everybody knows about the Great Flood. And they say before that, it was wiped out by fire. Then Greek mythology tells of Deucalion and the Great Flood, and before him was Phaethon and the world being destroyed by fire. So both of these cultures say flood, and then before that, fire. And when you get into the myth of Phaethon, they describe a heavenly body falling down and scorching earth. And here's to the different layers of meaning. Not everybody goes to a J.D. Rock funded public education system like most of us. But people who were educated instead of indoctrinated know exactly what pieces of art like this are alluding to. The rays coming out from his head signifies the proverbial crown and indicates a god in heaven, a heavenly body. And this heavenly body fell down and scorched the earth at one time. I've read writers from the 1800s that there's no doubt they understood what Greek mythology was talking about. We've been taught our worldview of the solar system, and this has been here for billions of years, when mythology tells us that there was a time before the moon that people remember. And what I'm going to read here is apparently the Greeks just sit there and watched the heavens realign themselves over generations. It was a constantly changing nighttime sky. And they describe Kronos, or Saturn, as being our first sun. Before we get into that, I want to say, if you've never seen Thunderbolt's projects, Symbols of an Alien Sky, you definitely need to check it out, because they've just reconstructed all of these images off of what the ancients were describing. There are different patterns of plasma discharges that are found in petroglyphs and ancient art all around the world. And you can get visible plasma Birkeland currents that are portrayed in ancient art all around the world, like the cosmic thunderbolt. Now, the mythology will paint its own picture here, but what Thunderbolt's project suggests is back during the golden age of mankind, the rent was always paid, the weather was always 78 degrees, and God said it was good. All the planets were in perfect alignment over the North Pole. And then something happened to throw all of that out of whack, and as we were watching this from Earth, from generation to generation, it was forming all of these different patterns. And these changing patterns that everybody saw inspired everything from crowns, to Indian headdresses, to totem poles, to the Phrygian cap, to the Egyptian sidelock. For thousands of years, people watched the skies change, and at times it was very destructive. Now, here's the deal, is we are using the term gods for totally different things at times. I'm 99% sure that the mythology we're about to read is about the gods in heaven, as in the planets and the stars. But at other times in history, I believe that that term has been used for physical beings that lived here that were a little more elevated than mankind. But it really is hard to tell. One minute I will think that Baal Haman was a colonizing deity in charge of the weather mods, and when he retired, Yahweh took his place. But then they throw in a sentence like he marches into battle with stars and planets. So you can probably see why I've debated this question a long time. But I think here we are talking about physical beings. While here, I think we're going to be talking about heavenly bodies, what's up in the sky. Viewer discretion advised. This is from the book The Cosmic Serpent by Victor Klube and Bill Napier. I'm pretty sure there's another book about the DMT serpents called The Cosmic Serpent. So make sure you're looking at the catastrophism version. And you can borrow it an hour at a time on Internet Archives if it's a free account. I use them all the time. But here's what they wrote. The Greek civilization, on the other hand, was not subdued to the same degree, at least as far as one can tell. It was still fearful of gods and very conscious of disasters, but the Greeks behaved more like disinterested observers of a heavenly pageant unfolding before their eyes. And I'm just going to skip around to the good parts. Most books can be reduced down to a couple of paragraphs, and the rest is all fluff. Among the principal sources of Greek mythology are the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Greeks themselves also systematized a mass of local and particular mythology that had developed independently in communities isolated by geography. So people that didn't even know each other had the same mythology. They also all remembered a golden age when man was basically at peace in a bountiful world. This was then followed by a silver age, described at first as a time of immense hardships when man was obliged to construct houses and work hard, when he became degenerate, mentally weak, and impious. In the period that followed the Bronze Age, men became stronger but were apparently bent on mutual destruction. Thus we arrive at a time of strife and violence in prehistory that eventually merge with the events of history. All the while, as life proceeded on Earth, the cosmic gods were fighting it out in the heavens. It seems that Kronos and Gaia presided over the Golden Age, but in due course they gave birth to an abundant new dynasty of gods. The youngest of the Titans was named Zeus, and the names Jupiter and Zeus are identical. Now, I don't know if things have changed over time or if I've got this mixed up in my head, but I was thinking that the Titans came before Zeus and the Olympians. But that may be Roman mythology, which is got all the same people, but I think is different from the Greeks. Same gods, different names. And, well, now that we're actually getting into the mythology, that's what it says right here. And at their birth they went with Olympus, exulting in their beautiful voice in the immortal song, and around them, as they sang, dark earth was re-echoing, and a winsome sound arose from their feet as they went. But he, Zeus, reigns in Olympus, having at his own disposal the thunder and the glowing bolt, since he had conquered by force his father Kronos. Now, Kronos, or Saturn, is known for devouring his children. And it's said that his wife wrapped a stone in a blanket and Kronos ate that while she snuck Zeus away to a cave or something. Then Zeus eventually defeats Kronos with his cosmic thunderbolts, and now he rules over the heavens. So Jupiter and Zeus are the same things. You have the eye of Jupiter, and they did have telescopes in the ancient world, but I think the sky was reconfigured to where everybody saw the eye of Jupiter. Odin from Norse mythology is the one-eyed god, and he is carrying a cosmic thunderbolt here. The Inca depict Viracocha with serpents, which are symbolic of lightning. And even the Sumerians are depicting a winged god with the cosmic thunderbolt here, which is really talking me out of the idea that these used to be physical beings. But cultures all around the world remember the war in the heavens. And they say that Kronos, Saturn, used to rule over the heavens. So let's see if we can decode what happened here. On that day, all of them, male and female, the Titan gods and all who were born of Kronos, and those terrible mighty ones with their insolent strength, whom Zeus brought up to the light from beneath the ground from Erebus, stirred up the sad battle. Now they mentioned all of them, both male and female, and then Erebus is the primordial god of darkness and the consort of night. His dark mists encircled the world and filled the deep hollows of the earth. In the evening, his wife Nyx drew Erebus' darkness across the sky, bringing night, and his daughter scattered it at dawn, bringing day. So they're essentially describing the first night here that wasn't always here. It's theorized that we were in a perpetual twilight kind of state, and the light that we saw was Saturn, Kronos. So Zeus brought up to the light from beneath the ground of Erebus. And then plasma fireworks. 100 hands shot from the shoulders of all of them alike, and 50 heads on stout limbs grew on the shoulders of each one of them. Then with high rocks in their stout hands, they fought against the Titans in a mournful battle. On the other side, the Titans strengthened their ranks zealously, and both sides simultaneously displayed the works of hands and great strength. The boundless sea rang terribly around, the earth crashed loudly, broad heaven quaked and groaned, and high Olympus shook from its base. The heavy shaking, the noise on high of feet in ceaseless pursuit, and of mighty blows reached the murky Tartarus. So then they threw at each other their grievous bolts. So they could hear these plasma discharges, just like in the 1300s when this was made. The trumpet of God is not strictly allegorical. This was something that people have heard many times. Now, if all of these plasma discharges were going crazy and things literally changing positions in the heavens, then our magnetic field would have been going haywire. That alone would be enough to be causing great quakes, but they're describing stones being thrown back and forth, and sounds like some of them were hitting us. The author notes, the picture of a huge body disintegrating into a vast shower of comets, with the Earth sometimes running into a stream of debris, seems to suggest itself. As time went on, the meteor stream, ocean as it was called, gave rise to even more spectacular events. That's interesting. I never caught the ocean metaphor here, but like the Bifrost Bridge, Norse mythology, definitely plasma. Then Zeus no longer held back his ferocity, but now immediately his mind was filled with fury, and he showed forth all his strength. At the same time, continually hurling his lightning, he came from heaven and Olympus. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what Mount Olympus was, but thick and fast, the thunderbolts with thunder and lightning flew from his stout hand, and they made a holy flame roll along as they came in quick succession. That is a lot like what was described at the Peshtigo fire, with the entire sky being on fire just back in the 1800s. These things happen a lot more than we think. The life-giving earth blazed and crashed all around, and all around immense woods crackled loudly with the fire. Same thing as Peshtigo. The whole land, ocean, streams, and the unfruitful sea seethed. The hot blast surrounded the earthborn Titans, and an immense flame reached the shining upper air. The gleaming brilliance of the thunderbolt and lightning blinded their eyes, strong though they were. An awful heat seized chaos. To look at it straight on with the eyes or hear the sound of it with the ears, it seemed just as if the earth and broad heaven threatened to meet above us. And so great was the din which arose from the former collapsing in ruins, and from the latter dashing her down from above, so great was the din when the gods met in conflict. Together with this, the wind stirred up earthquakes, dust, thunder, lightning, and smoky thunderbolts. The arrows of great Zeus carried shouts and cries. How has all of this been construed to not be what it is? I mean, it's plain as day what they're describing here. But no, thanks to academia, this is all the stuff of science fiction. It could never happen in real life. But this is not the end of the tale. Years passed by until when Zeus had driven the Titans from heaven, the huge earth gave birth to her youngest child, Typhoeus, by intercourse with Tartarus, the underworld. We may picture them one night, Zeus and his new offspring, rising up over the horizon, presumably trailing its huge tail. This combination then threatened the earth perhaps for many years, until there came yet another assault. I hope you guys aren't in a hurry. This is long-winded, but it's poetry to me. And I really want you to stick around and hear the story of Coilshakwe, the Aztec moon goddess. Everything ties in together. But he thundered harshly and strongly, and all around the earth, the broad heaven above, the sea, ocean streams, and the lowest parts of the earth resounded terribly. Through the two of them, heat seized the purple sea. And by the way, Saturn put off a pale purple bluish light. From the thunder and lightning, the fire from the monster, the hurricane winds, and the blazing thunderbolts, the whole earth, sky, and sea seethed, and moreover, long waves raged around and around about the shores. So when Zeus had raised up his strength, he chose his weapons, thunder and lightning, and the smoky thunderbolt. He leapt from Olympus and struck him and burned him, the awful heads of the terrible monster. Sounds a lot like this Sumerian carving. But when he had tamed him and lashed him with blows, he was thrown down lame, and the huge earth groaned. The flame from the thunderstruck Lord shot out in the unseen rocky glens of the mountains when he was struck. So this thing was hurled down to earth. Much of the vast earth caught fire as a result of the awful blast and melted just as tin melts. Grieving at heart, he cast him down into broad Tartarus. Now I want to tell you about the Aztec moon goddess Coyolxauhqui, and notice how she's all dismembered here. They tell of Coyolxauhqui and her 400 brothers, which are the 400 stars of the southern sky, and they finally reached the top of Coatepec Hill to end their mother's life. Coatlicue gave birth to Huitzilopochtli, who was born a fully armed warrior with his face painted blue and his head decorated with eagle feathers. Resources get scarce during these times, so the warrior god comes with his mighty weapon, the fire serpent, which was actually a ray of the sun, with which he swiftly butchered his unruly siblings, and chopping up Coyolxauhqui into several large chunks, he tossed the pieces down the mountain. So all of these chunks are falling down, and meanwhile the head of the goddess was tossed up into the sky, and it became the moon, and his brothers the stars of the firmament. Which sounds a lot like Immanuel Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision, where something hit the earth and ejected the moon. And for Tiamat, they're even showing the same artwork that I've been showing. That wasn't planned. When the pieces fit, they fit. Hesiod's War of the Gods, then, is between two factions in the sky, in the course of which one group is dashed down from above. The description seems to be that of a shower of comets emerging to do battle with pre-existing ones, with the Earth sometimes running into a stream of debris, the events culminating in the close passage of a late fragment. Typhoeus with destructive consequences. Some aspects of the account bear a striking resemblance both to that of the Tunguska event and the Veliki Usting fall of AD 1296. It is notable that the thunderbolts of Zeus are clearly distinguished from thunder and lightning, that they rained down thick and fast, were blinding in their intensity, setting the earth alight, while blast, heat, earthquake, and tremendous noise accompanied the battle, and an immense flame reached the upper atmosphere. It seems, therefore, that Hesiod's account is a rather literal description, based on sources now lost, of a series of impact events which may be recognized as associated with comet disintegration. Then he points out that Egyptian mythology concurs, as well as Incan, Aztec, any ancient civilization that you can find. And according to his theory, comets were not known as such before this time, before present day time. People saw these as something else, as greater than life, as supernatural beings. A lot like I was doing at the beginning of this video, right? But there are definitely arguments to be made for both sides. This is just one side of the story. Sometimes the comets stayed aloft and seemed relatively benign. Perhaps these were the angels. Others, however, came down to threaten life on Earth. These were gods of a more belligerent kind, qualifying as dragons in the sky or as devils. So what did we learn here? Well, Saturn, Kronos, originally ruled the sky and was presumably our sun, our source of light. And this is the basis for the Saturnic cults. And get this, the ancient Saturnalia festival that predates Christmas had a ritual where the cult statue of Saturn in the temple traditionally had woolen bonds tied around his feet. But during Saturnalia, these bonds were loosened to symbolize the god's liberation. So that was Saturn losing its predominance in our sky and floating off into relative obscurity. I mean, it's a tiny speck in the sky now. After Zeus, Jupiter had shot cosmic thunderbolts at it. And as the gods warred in heaven, chunks were falling down, possible solar flare, scorched earth is all I know. So from now on, every time you see this statue, you're going to think of it a lot differently because they kept the masses in the dark about the most important events in world history. So welcome to the light. Static out.